Today is a special day. Today is the first edition of my series on Lightsaber Duels, where I dive into the characters involved, the motivating factors fueling the fight, as well as my general feelings about its execution cinematically. Since I enjoy salty comments, I thought I would begin with Luke vs Kylo Ren on Crait. To be honest, I haven't seen much analysis on this duel beyond,
"Wow, if they had Luke use a green lightsaber, it would have made the entire film better."
or
"Wow, Luke should have raised his completely unusable X-Wing out of the oceans of Octu, flown to Crait, cut off Kylo Ren's arm, and then faded into the Force."
I get some people are eternally upset that Luke Skywalker didn't flip around like Yoda in Attack of the Clones, but I'd argue that people who wished for that style of duel generally missed the point of what unfolded before their very eyes. This isn't anime, folks. This fight was grounded. It was the first time the kendo influence of dueling actually came across extremely well. And again, that's my opinion. This lightsaber duel was basically Kylo Ren fighting himself, fighting a ghost of his past, fighting nothing. It displayed how Kylo Ren lets his rage cloud his judgment to such a degree he can't even notice the countless signals pointing to Luke's presence being an extremely advanced mind trick. So the official term of Luke's force projection, even if it's from Legends, is called simul futurus. And I know, it sounds like something from Harry Potter, but in this adaptation, the use kills the user. And yes, this is foreshadowed in the first force bond with Kylo Ren, but back to the fight. On the opposite side of this, Luke Skywalker has chosen to use a force technique knowing that it would end his life. But it's also a necessary evil because there is no way for him to get off Crait. And using this technique would ensure that no harm would come to his nephew. Luke Skywalker has no intent to harm Ben Solo at all, and that's extremely important. Luke isn't dealing in absolutes, he's dealing with his family, and it's a complicated situation. As we all know, Luke was integral in the fall of Ben Solo, and after what happened at his Jedi Academy, Luke wasn't interested in igniting a lightsaber ever again. He would deal with this duel in a true Jedi fashion, acting only in defense, never for attack. Now, the imagery as Kylo Ren departs his shuttle and Luke gazes on is stunning. It's probably some of the finest visual effects and cinematography out of a Star Wars ever. The ground is decimated with white and red. The atmosphere has an amber hue to it, and the towering AT-M6 walkers create an enormous sense of scale in the setting. They are surrounded by so much space, but this is a small, intimate moment between only the two of them. I find it interesting. And although Kylo and Luke are staring at each other over essentially a wasteland, it's so beautiful. It's like they are literally standing on wounds. And perhaps that's the point. These two are deeply tormented in their own respective ways. Kylo is afraid of Luke, and his fear makes him angry, and that anger turns into the explosive rage we see during the fight. One might ask, well, why is Kylo Ren even afraid? I'd imagine that seeing his former master take on the full firepower of AT-M6s and then walk out like he just had the best haircut of his life would be pretty unnerving. The last time Kylo Ren saw Luke, he was holding an ignited lightsaber over him. You can see in Kylo Ren's body language how scared he is. He's constantly shifting and trembling and twitching. Now from here, Kylo Ren is the first to ignite his blade. Right before that, he basically comes off as if he's confident by throwing off his cape and bolt stomping on the ground. And Luke, on the other hand, looks like he's doing a mindfulness meditation as he ignites Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber, the very lightsaber he threw over his shoulder at the beginning of the film. This is partly to demonstrate to the audience that Luke has finally accepted Rey's original call to action. She held out Anakin's lightsaber, and here is Luke now using it. And then the extra layer of context here is that Ben Solo just saw the very blade explode before his eyes. Again, Kylo Ren is unable to think clearly and rationally during this duel with Luke. Also, considering what Kylo Ren said in The Force Awakens about the blade being his property, Luke using it could be essentially a bit of a troll. After all, Luke can read Ben's mind to a certain degree, and Luke does choose to project himself just in the right manner to get the maximum effect out of Kylo Ren, and that's according to Ryan Johnson. From here, the duel begins. and the fight is pure kendo fuel. Kylo points his blade in the direction of his enemy Luke. It's almost as if Kylo is directing its focus in this moment as well, right to the tip of his blade. And they actually stay like this for a while, staring at each other, basically waiting. The ultimate Star Wars standoff. I thought the framing of Kylo's face close up with his erratic lightsaber was perfect. A portrait of unstableness. Now, a funny moment in this fight, at least for me, is Luke's smirk before Kylo goes in for a killing blow. We see Kylo twist his heel on the salt, revealing the red beneath. My guess is Luke is thinking to himself that this young man has no idea what he's doing, has no idea why he's fighting, and basically Luke is smirking because he's already won. As Kylo goes in for a strike, he did something I thought was amazing, which was twisting the blade around in his hand to a reverse grip as he initially strikes out at Luke. And this immediately set Kylo up for another very vicious strike, which he again misses, but you can actually see in Luke's eyes that he's a bit caught off guard by the ferocity of Kylo's first attack. It was an explosion of movement and rage. And again, to bring this back to Kendo, Kendo is about high intensity attack, and you can very much see the influence in Kylo Ren's form. After this, we see Luke similarly pivot on his heel, revealing to the audience that something is not right. But on first viewing, you don't really get what's going on until the very end. Luke moves his heel, and there's no red. You could take that imagery in so many ways beyond the projection foreshadow. Luke not leaving any red scars behind on the ground could be a visual metaphor for his refusal to truly engage in a lightsaber duel. Luke doesn't want to cause any more damage. Luke doesn't want to cause any more pain. And around this part, musically, as the duel is really getting going, the way the music ebbs and flows sounds like a fight in and of itself. It has this call and response quality to it, and the actual chords that make up the orchestration give a sense of tension and something almost like pleading. It's hard to describe, and from here, Kylo reorients himself and goes in for another attack. And this section was very novel for a Star Wars film. Kylo Ren swings at Luke, trying to cut him in half, and before Ren's blade even gets close to Luke, Luke is already preemptively avoiding the incoming lightsaber. It just barely misses the tip of his nose as we watch the blade go by in extreme slow motion. And just as the blade clears Luke's head, Ren immediately brings down the saber so fast that Luke has to move his body in a way that looks supernatural. And yes, I know he's projecting himself, but you know what I mean. The way Luke dodges the lightsaber strikes is jaw-dropping. It straight up points out how gifted he is as a Jedi and duelist. He can literally avoid anything. And it reminds me of the phrase, "Be water, my friend." It's a Bruce Lee phrase. Yeah, that's Luke Skywalker in this battle. As Luke fully stands up after the previous attack, he now has tears in his eyes. And this is where that pleading aspect to the music comes into play. The fight is essentially over at this point for Luke. And I think Luke was legitimately disheartened at the depths of Kylo's rage towards him. It's here that we finally hear Luke tell Ben that he's failed him as a master, that he's sorry. And in that moment, in my first viewing of this movie, it was very emotional. For a lightsaber duel, this felt the most raw and intimate out of the entire saga for me. It felt the most real, I suppose, with the next runner-up being Luke vs. Darth Vader on the Death Star 2. Highly emotional duel as well. Kylo lashes out again here, stating how he will destroy everything. He will destroy Luke, the Resistance, Rey, all of it, and then Luke turns off his blade. My personal interpretation of this was that Luke could feel what was going on inside of Kylo's mind, the storm. I think Luke could sense Ben thinking about what he did to his own father and how it ripped him apart. I think he saw this as his potential end point in this unorthodox duel. He reminds Ben that if he strikes him down in anger, he will always be with him, just like his father Han. And the second Luke says father, it immediately hits Kylo Ren like a bullet. He flinches, and Luke gazes on curious, and also realizing everything he has said is the absolute truth. It's here that Kylo goes in for that final killing blow, running so fast at his former master that after he swings right through him like it was nothing, he slides about a meter on the salt, revealing one long red line, one big scar. To me, it's a representation of the next death on Kylo's conscience, which is Luke. Kylo immediately knows something is wrong because he swung through Luke like nothing was there, but he turns and he still sees his master. Luke gives him this look like, "Wake up, kid." And Kylo walks towards Luke, blade extended, until it goes right through him, causing him no harm. I think when Kylo Ren says no here, it's because there's an instant understanding of, wow, My uncle, the most powerful Jedi that exists right now, just used a technique to distract me, knowing full well that he would die. And Luke finishes his ruse by telling Kylo, "See you around, kid." And then he fades away, leaving Kylo with nothing but an empty rebel base and more rage. As I've stated, Kylo fought nothing, he achieved nothing, and his entire attack on Crait ended up bested by a projection from his past. And on the other side of this, Luke fully redeems himself, helping out the Resistance and his sister, atoning for what he did to Ben Solo, while still trying to dispel some wisdom to his fallen apprentice before death. And finally, just like his father, Yoda, and Obi-Wan, he becomes one with the Force, the next guiding spirit. This duel was not supposed to be a flashy, prequel-esque romp that could be replicated in a video game. It was intimate and small in scale and less about the flash and more about the emotions boiling inside of these two men. Each swing of the lightsaber meant something and felt visceral. And just because this was extremely different when compared to the rest of the saga, doesn't mean it's inherently bad. If there is something I like more about the sequel trilogy than the prequels and original trilogy, it's the fact that lightsaber duels now feel dangerous. It may be the fact that Kylo Ren's style of fighting is about overpowering people in high-speed strikes. Regardless of what it is, I love it. So this has been my deep dive into the duel between Luke and Kylo Ren on the planet Crait from The Last Jedi. What things did you take away from this fight if you happen to enjoy it? The way The Last Jedi was made seems to allow for so many various interpretations, so like I say, no one is wrong or right here. And if you didn't like the duel, perfectly okay. But I hope there was something I mentioned that might have been interesting at the very least. As always, may the Force be with you. AT-AT is signing off.